Hey, I want to talk about a bunch of things, and one of them is on social media, on TikTok and elsewhere. I hear a lot of people, especially in reference to the United States, talking about there's not going to be a savior or a hero or somebody that steps in and helps us out. And in a way, I disagree. My work that I do took me over 25 years, and it has been a labor of love. And I'll explain a little bit more about my work in a minute, just to help lay a construct of how there are people who have been out there looking at this for a long time and I'm not here to say recognizing that this was going to fall and all these things were going to happen. Maybe some of us did. I'm an intuitive. I can definitely see things ahead, and I'm really, my sweet spot is I'm adept at seeing patterns, which is what intuition is. But what happened for me is I came to see it very differently. How we live, what we look at and value in our societies and in our world. And I'm not the first person to say this, but capitalism can't keep up. Like it can't stay forever, right? That's not a realistic thing that can continue on forward. It's not a model we can maintain. So I want to give you a little bit of my history because I don't share this, and I think that this is an important part of what led me to the work that I've done, which is really around looking at narcissism, but I call it now narcissistic social disordering, and questioning why all people don't thrive. But my history is when I was young. I have a memory from when I could just stand up in my crib and with one hand holding on. And the reason I know that that is something that I remember is the room that I was in wouldn't have looked the same as I got older. And I don't have any memories in between that very young age and probably 4 years old. And the room would have been different. So I remember the configuration of the room, and there's no way that I would have known that. And I could visually see it. And people who are clairvoyant tend to be able, there's some noise in the background. Sorry if you're hearing that. They tend to be able to the see things as a young one and remember them for a long time. And to me, I speculate that that's remembering it clairvoyantly, not actually remembering it exactly through our memory, but that there's an enhancement in there for us to be certain to remember it. And then fast forward a few years, I had a challenging childhood for me. I'm not saying that my siblings would say that, but it was a steep climb emotionally and mentally in my home. It was a war zone. And I could tell when I was quite young, and when I say quite young, probably 7 and 8, that my family was about disconnection. And that troubled me. And I didn't know why. And I knew that, but you can't say that. Why are you about disconnection? They would not have understood. They're intelligent people, but that wouldn't have translated. And I'm a connector, and I'm also the type of person that really loves other people. I mean, now I travel the world freely at this moment in time. I'm in London right now. And I do that because I like to be out among people and meet new people and experience that, right? Like I really love that. So here I am in this environment and recognizing certain pieces. There was a lot of trauma that happened for me by the time I was 6. That was a lot. And when I was 7 in first grade, I was afraid by that point of my classroom, my teacher. It was too much for me. I was overstimulated. And honestly, I think my brain was on trauma mode. I'm not into that. I'm not into defining the disorders and these things because I feel like sometimes, well, often it holds us back and we're looking at it from the wrong angle. But that will be in a later video. So my experience was that I'd check out in class because I couldn't reconcile what was going on there. It was already happening in my family home, the place I'm supposed to feel the most safe. And then it's happening in my first grade classroom. And what did happen is at one point during the school year, the students were in the middle of a spelling test, and the teacher came over to me and shook my shoulder and started screaming at me. And I looked across the room out the window, and there was a yogi floating up there. And this was in the 1970s. I had no reference point for what that was, but it wasn't foreign or strange to me. It felt safe. And I could see myself out there in a smaller version, floating kind of in an odd way near it, meaning I was out there too. And I was at a private Catholic school. It's lucky I didn't say anything. I must have known better. So that was an experience that I had. And fast forward even further, I'd come to have more and more experiences in different ways that led me into understanding intuition from a unique angle. But the point that I want to make here is not about intuition. It's more the fact that when we have had a childhood with a lot stacked against us and hard to survive, you know, emotionally, mentally, and move through into adulthood, that what ended up happening for me because of the intuition is I had a powerful internal life because it was the only place I was connected. And what that provided me is undeniably in my 20s, I could see I have connection for sure. It's through this. It also taught me that I was empowered as an intuitive right away, but I was not empowered as a human. And the difference in that was I've never identified with the term empathic or being an empath, which, yeah, for sure, I feel all of it, all of it. But I don't care because the power's there. So it just doesn't bother me. It's there, I'm sure, but it's not an annoyance or a challenge. It makes sense to me. And it is kind of like the power of my experience and knowing lets that slide off. So I have a little bit different take on that idea of the empath. And I think it's a tricky thing in our world. It also, in a way, is like disorder. And so I say to empaths, if you consider yourself an empath, what you're really telling me from my work is you're disempowered. And that's the pain point that's needed to be solved, is from here to there. You solve that. Okay, so here we are, right? Is I'm in this situation where I'm definitely the intuition is on. But what do you do with that trauma? I mean, in college, I don't even think my brain could think. I must have looked so foolish and unintelligent to my professors. Yet I'm quite intelligent. It's just that trauma was so heaped up on me. And maybe you can relate. My work really is for highly sensitive people, for women, and for creatives. And it is particularly for people within those groups that are curious people. Like I'm super curious about everything. So here I am in this experience of trauma. My brain isn't working very well. And really the only option was to go inward. But that happened for me in the late 1990s, where I didn't go and choose to meditate. Instead, I was challenging my own experience in this and asking questions and pushing back. Like, as an example, with my intuition, instead of trusting and having reverence for it, I challenged it and I said, if you want me to do this, you need to make it clear what I'm doing, the foundation, why I'd care, and what it means. Otherwise, forget it. Right. So there were these boundaries with it, this pushback of saying, I'm happy to be this, but I need to know. Right. And there's the word that's so important again is no. That's a really important word in our world right now. And you know what? I'm going to just dive into that. So, fast forward again, that my work over 25 years evolved into seeing patterns at such a great depth and challenging those patterns with inside of the pattern to make sure that I had all of the facets worked out so I can answer almost every question and understand it from all angles. That the thing that we're missing in our world is such a simple thing, but we're caught in this model that is really enforcing that we're constantly vying for a spot in the hierarchy. So I say that the model is the control we assert to maintain or advance our place in the hierarchy. And that challenges us because we're never really living to who we are. And that's why we feel stuck. There's another reason we truly feel stuck, that we're in a fixed point model. But I just wrote a book, no pressure. I'm not asking you to buy it. It's not even out yet. It's coming out soon. But my point is that in that book, I don't talk about that fixed point model. That will be my second book. But the idea here is we see time speeding up, that things are moving faster and faster and faster. And we also see that there are not really new ideas so much within veins of business. You know, in the speaker world, which is where I am, people will say there's really nothing new to say, right? And I'm sure if you look at your own field that you're in, you'll say, yeah, that, you know, I'm a teacher and it's stagnant, or I'm a lawyer and we aren't really thinking on new levels, or, you know, whatever it is. That's part of the problem. And it's what contributes to this model. And well, not contributes, but more so is the end result of the model is that we've gotten to being tapped out because there's not a place for the model to move. The model is getting into a position where there's no more room for us to expand and express. And in my work, you know it. You've met somebody who knows an older woman, maybe a grandma, who, when you speak to her, she responds in a one sentence, and you know she knows what she's saying. She knows it through her core. She knows who she is. It's undeniable truth. And you take it. It's power. And that is what's missing in us, is we've had it paved over. We've had 1 million messages, each of us, of who to be and how to do it, and when we're hungry and when we're tired and labeled and all this, that has left us into a place of not knowing who we are. And we wonder that you're stuck, I'm stuck. How do we do that? And it's clear all of the messages go inward. But here's the thing is, what I found also is going inward through spiritual means is the old way. A lot of that is in the model. It's not that it's wrong to meditate or journal or do any of that. A gratitude journal, forget it. That's not worth it. I'll explain that probably in another video too, because there's a much more powerful thing to do versus a gratitude journal. And it's not a different type of journal or a different way. There's no trick there. It's something that, again, we're not meeting the thing that actually helps it solve itself. So this model is cultivating that we stay stuck and that we don't advance. And the reason is, in the beginning of my work, I looked at why don't all people thrive? And that is why, is the model is there saying there's a hierarchy. If you don't maintain or advance your place in it, you have no importance within it. And we can talk about entitlement and we can talk about a lot of things, but truth be told, you don't know what somebody's experienced unless you really hear the unfolding of their life. And I'm going to try and open up and share more. It's really hard for me because I feel like I'm outing people, and I feel, you can hear I'm sad, like I want to cry, that the way that I perceive the story was always a very different way than my family did, even though, interestingly, all of my siblings, from my perception, saw the person in our family who's the narcissist exactly the same way. And that's pretty rare in itself. Okay, I feel like I've moved all over the place. The main thing here is this model is, it's time for it to go. And if you're somebody who isn't a woman, a highly sensitive, or a creative that isn't curious, this isn't for you at all. You don't need to comment. You don't need to get involved. But if you know somebody who fits that, I'd encourage you to send this to them, because those people probably are hurting a bit more, particularly the highly sensitives. And the highly sensitives play an important role of what's breaking down, because they felt different. They can see how to change things. And I say in my work that what's good for the highly sensitive is good for all people. But what's good for all people is not good for the highly sensitive, meaning the highly sensitive now are here to set the tone for society. And you are the change makers that can lay those tracks and foundation for that. Okay. I'm trying to think of anything else that I want to say about this. There's so much to say about this. This work is like learning a foreign language. It's so simple what I'm teaching, but it's quite complex. It took me many years to unfold. And this going inward, I'll go back to that, is really instead of meditating or doing these things that actually can end up being in the model, and we can be in the model with them if we're proving and saying, well, I do yoga, that's in the model. If I meditate every day, or we force ourselves to meditate every day because that's what we're told, or that's what we think we should do, or we have to because we can't handle life without that, that's all in the model. It's all you are doing is vying for a place in your own hierarchy, for maintaining it. In that case, when we're struggling to say, I got to go do that, we're trying to maintain it and we aren't finding calm naturally. People who know are calm by nature. And I'll tell you the result of my work, which does collapse narcissism, is natural equality. And behind that, which I don't care as much about, is natural abundance. And I haven't looked beyond that. Who knows what's beyond that? But all these things we're crying for are here. And they're pretty simple, but it takes audacity to stand up and face it because not many people, if anybody, is operating outside of the model, which 15 years ago was really hard for me to take. It was challenging. So as a result, now in a few months ago, I started 2 writings that I do on Substack and also on my blog. And I'd encourage you to take a look if what I'm saying is making you more curious or you're feeling it with my work or what I'm talking about. One of them is called Dear HSP, and it's letters to highly sensitive people from a highly sensitive person about what I see the position is for highly sensitives today, the pitfalls. I don't look at a highly sensitive person as it's a gift and it's a curse. That's what pretty much everything I've read on sensitivity is that. And I'm sorry, but there's a lot of drama written into what a highly sensitive person is. Even at top levels, there's a lot of drama. And it's not that. It's not a gift. It's not something that can be given or taken away. It's just like intuition. Everybody has it in certain 2 ways. Some people have it in all ways, a bunch of ways, but that's not something that can be given and taken away. And our struggle for it becomes an obsession for some people to understand our intuition. And that's what gets in the way of it. That also is in the model. It's complex, right? It's complex. So Dear HSP, I recommend that. It's free. You can read it. I have audios that you can sign up and it's just a small fee. And then I have another one that is about this book that's coming out in September of 2025, and it's called The Future of Our Past. And it's a perspective of my work from what's going on in this time, in this era, from 250 years in the future, relating between a grandmother and a granddaughter. And the grandmother is teaching the granddaughter about it, as well as the granddaughter is reading about what unfolded during this time. But it's a way to give a distant perspective of what's possible. And the book that I've written is called Know, K-N-O-W, where the status quo ends and you come to life. Lists out or lays out stories to help us understand where things were pitfalls and didn't work, but illustrated through stories of real life into what our potential is. And the potential for our future, I'll explain that in another video because it's a little bit more complex. But we really are here to be expressive expanders. That's kind of a funny thing to say, but the truth of that is what's happening now is we are oppressed from expressing in a true way. And people express, you've met people that you think, oh, they are annoying me the way that they express themselves. But the reality of that is it's probably not their true way. And that is part of the trouble, is we are expressing off of ways that maintain that spot in the hierarchy. I know this is a lot, but I have looked at it forever. And so again, this might not be for you. I was speaking to somebody at an event on Saturday, to two people, and one person was a highly sensitive, and they said, boy, this is really important. Like what you're saying is really making sense to me. And the other person really enjoyed it. But at the end, they made a comment, well, that's going to take a bunch of years and that won't work out and so on. My friends used to say that years ago. You're never going to see this happen in your lifetime, what you're proposing. This is way ahead of what's going. No, you're way ahead. But you know what? This work is right on time and people are ready. We're hungry for it because we want a solution and a way to find the way forward. And this is one of them. And the other point I'm going to make here is there are a bunch of me. There are tons of people like me that did the same thing, where they were looking at how do we look at this from so far ahead and watch what's going on so that we can help lay the tracks for the future and the way that we would like to see our world shaped as we come out of this collapse of control and of narcissism. And to me, I don't define narcissism the same way. I don't even know what psychology defines that as. I do believe in my work, people can be born with that predisposition toward it. And there's a reason for that. And people can cultivate it when they're growing up. So I see it two way, or this it's the same thing, but it's a different reason that it happened. But again, that's for another video. That's not for now. So I hope that this is help just lay some information down to help you gain a little foundation on perhaps what's going on, and that there are people there that are here to solve it. There are people here that have looked at this for such a long time and have ideas that are really forward thinking, and that might make us uncomfortable. I think the person I spoke about from Saturday that said something that went right into the model with it at the end to put me in my place and tell me they know better than I do, which is the model's aim, is uncomfortable with it. They aren't ready for it. And I say in my work, natural equality really derives from us knowing that is for me or that is not for me. And we know it based on our sense, not on our mind and not on our feelings. And that's different. And you'd say, well, that's intuition. Sure, but it's actually just a birthright of being a human. So do we have to go there with intuition? I don't really think we do. And intuition is pretty complex. And how I would define intuition is not necessarily the same thing as knowing. It's a little bit different. Knowing is simply the imprint that we are born with for our life trajectory to know the basics of when we're hungry, when we're tired, when we're angry, when we have to use the bathroom. Just these basic things. And that's inherent and essential for the expression of who we are to go the distance. All right, I hope this has helped you. If you have any further curiosities, check out my other videos, like, share, follow, and hells bells, tell your friends, because I'll be back with more videos to share more about how my work unfolded and be a little more vulnerable to share what my journey was. It's quite hard for me. And thank you for being here, because I need that too. I need that support to say it and let it out of me here on video. All right, thanks, and have a great whatever it is for you.